Pascal Siakam's game one performance was certainly good enough to stave off most criticism, and deservedly so. But these 76ers have a true MVP candidate, an immensely talented guard in James Harden, another one in Tyrese Maxey, and suddenly hyper efficient and great decision making Tobias Harris. In the regular season, when the Raptors beat the 76ers, they didn't need good Siakam, which is his right to be, but they needed full blown star Siakam, 38 and 8, good defense, pressing them at all times. That's what we need to see going forward from him. Siakam's game one performance was gradual and climbing. This was a player who was, rather than attacking everything that he saw, was assessing a defense that was locked onto him. He was gauging rotation and figuring out how he fits into everything. But again, he can take way more. There is meat left on this bone. And that's something that he figured out as the game went on. And honestly, despite putting up a super tidy stat line of 24 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, and 3 blocks on good shooting, 50-50, 100 splits, there's still a lot of meat left on the bone. He is still a sleeping dragon in this series. 5 first half shots, 4 of them outside the paint, and in game 2, Siakam can't leave plays on the floor. We saw some of them, and let's walk through those. So we can see here, he's already headed downhill towards Embiid, and Maxey behind him is already closing out to the spot Siakam hasn't passed to yet. But the play seems obvious with Embiid and drop. Here's where Siakam has to take the ball himself, but what he does instead is pass out to Precious, and Precious gets an 18-foot pull-up jumper. He misses. Pascal isn't responsible for Precious's decision-making, but that's a situation where everyone watching wants Siakam to go at Embiid. And sure, he's Joel Embiid. He is a massively impactful defender. He's a super big deal at the rim. But on the other side of things, you're Pascal Siakam. You have immaculate touch. You've been one of the best highest usage isolation scorers in the NBA all season. You have taken all comers at the rim. Keep doing so. It's what you did in the regular season in this matchup, and it's what this team needs of you in this matchup too. And here, one of their favorite plays that they run is the inverted pick and roll with Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet. He gets the edge. And of course, that low man rotation comes over and Embiid comes over as well. But Siakam has to be able to recognize what may be the best look in a possession. And the Raptors, for what it's worth, all those years ago when they had Serge Ibaka as the pick and pop option, the salve, the fix for variation, it wasn't the best shot on the floor if everything's working great. If the shooters are going, you don't need that shot. But to keep the offense afloat, you get those looks. And that's what Pascal Siakam has to be on a team that has OG, Fred, and Gary, and any one of them could be having a bad night from 3, maybe all 3. He has to be able to get to his spots and make the defense work and stop him. So passing out of this drive to Fred for a 3 that's honestly not a very good look, this is where he needs to recognize he probably has the best look on this possession, whether it's the pop shot, that little touch shot from 12 feet, or whether it's him resetting and getting into an isolation and drawing a double a different way. He has to work for better looks.
I think again there was loading, there was a lot of helping. I think that I didn't get to where I wanted to early on.
When the Raptors have those shots going, when it's been clearly identified that somebody's feeling it, that the Raptors, they have that top-side action, they can swing the ball around and be rewarded with a 3, that's when you start to manipulate further as a passer. And he started to find a really good sense of how to attack, when to go for his own stuff, when to play make. And that's one of the most important things here is that Pascal Siakam has to be in such great form for the Raptors to win, and he was finding it by the end of game 1. When we look at how he was handling doubles or stunts, there were too many times in game 1 where he picked up his dribble. The stunt worked and he was in dead air. He just couldn't do anything with it. He had to reset the ball. They lose time off the clock. And it was tough to create good looks. They did score well that game, but it didn't come easy. And so this is where he has to be able to keep that dribble alive, make the stunt commit, or re-engage the isolation without that stunt coming all the way over. He has to dictate how this team guards him. And yes, they're going to put Embiid on him and still shade people. And yes, they're gonna, if he gets the switch, take somebody else and shade with Embiid, no matter where he is. We can look at this play here. The Raptors try and run an Iverson cut for Siakam. He goes to go over, and Embiid is going to track him. Embiid tries to shoot the gap and beat him. Pascal backtracks, and they get the switch. Pascal is like, food, a switch that isn't Embiid. I'm going to take this to the hole, but Embiid just shoots over and doubles anyway. Then we're looking at a guy who's extending this advantage. That's what you need to do. One pass away is Precious Achiuwa, who wasn't shooting well from three at that point in time. What Pascal does is he makes Embiid commit all the way over while tracking the weak side and finds OG. This is a great look. This is a great pass, and OG puts the ball down and gets to the right spot. He just has to make that shot. And this is great process from the Raptors. This is Siakam extending that advantage, manipulating further with his dribble alive, and making a great decision. These are the decisions rather than passing out of a drive way back up court to Fred for a 27-foot three. This is the decision that we want to see. And honestly, none of this would be necessary if all of his teammates were fully healthy and giving consistent performances. And that could change, but until it becomes clear that those guys are ready to effectively gun, lead with your bucket getting. As difficult as it may be, he has to push a little harder sometimes. He can't let the 76ers rest on his possessions. He needs to bring it to them a little more often. There were a few too many times where he let them get away with it on a possession. And in this game, and against this 76ers team that has such unbelievable talent, Hall of Fame talent, just all over the board, Pascal needs to be a guy who pushes every chance he gets. It's a big ask. He was good in game one, but for the Raptors to have a good chance the rest of the series, Pascal needs to access the version of himself that wouldn't pass up shots in the first quarter. The version of himself that knows that maybe he starts 2 for 6 from the field, but he has to apply that pressure on the 76ers. In game one, he played very mistake-free offense, but he is the linchpin of the Raptors offense. He can't play mistake-free. He has to try to exist outside of his limitations. He has to push past those. And if this sounds like hyperbole, I'm sorry, but he has to be a little bit more aggressive with some of this decision making.
You know, I think I started to adapt a little bit and adjust as the game was going. But yeah, coming in second game, you know, we got to get to our spot a little quicker, and I have to make sure that I continue to be aggressive throughout the game. But yeah.
Sometimes he is going to have to pass out. Sometimes it isn't just going to be score over whoever's there. But finding the right balance of scorer versus playmaker is something that he accessed in the second half. That when he saw Embiid on him in isolation, when he saw Embiid in isolation in the second half, he took him off the bounce. He established contact, and he knocked Embiid off his balance. Embiid recovered and fouled him. No call. But that is the exact type of aggressiveness and punch that we've come to expect from a Pascal Siakam downhill possession. A few times in the first half, he looked those off. And if the 76ers are going to roll with this type of defense against him, game one was uber valuable in that he's, as I said, assessing how they're going to rotate, assessing how they want to double and shade. They're playing pack line defense on him. They didn't care that much about the shooting. The 76ers felt confident that they could rotate out there, that they could hamper down the Raptors' volume from three and make other guys drive like Gary Trent Jr. instead of Pascal. Pascal needs to take this into his calculus and figure out how much he wants for himself. In game two, I expect more screening actions for Pascal. I expect more 45 extended isolation touches for him. And honestly, I expect him to be more aggressive from the outset. The Raptors can't have anything else. If somebody else picks it up, if he then gets to play, okay, I'm second fiddle, third fiddle, whatever, then he's always been good at calibrating that. But in these types of games, to make sure that the Raptors don't spot the other team points off the start, he can't be stuck in second or third in the first half. Those 5 shots, he has to push past them. He has to get more shots up, truly. And this isn't me trying to criticize him. This is saying that the context he currently exists in, the difficulty of this matchup, and honestly, when we look at some of his teammates, we're now learning that Gary Trent was sick during game one. Fred VanVleet still not healthy from his knee injury, and Scotty Barnes, who knows what. Pascal is carrying a heavier load than he should have to, but that load is still there and still needs to be attempted to be carried. And he did have a good mindset saying, Well, it's just one game. He feels, and the Raptors feel like they can get back into the series. As tough as it is, they have the talent on the roster to punch up at the 76ers team. He's the biggest part of doing that. So, despite receiving so much attention from the 76ers, Pascal Siakam, he knows from when he watches the film, the Raptors know it, and the 76ers probably know it. There's still a lot more left for him to give in this series. I expect a huge performance in game 2 after a good performance in game 1. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, let's go Raptors.